and then people would invest them. In fact, that call to action ended up with over a couple of hundred international non-governmental organizations, more than 200 faith-based organizations. It became quite a combined strategy and experience. And the US, for our part, decided we would focus our efforts. We doubled down in 24 of the countries that made up 80% of the under 5 deaths, and that we would focus our interventions on causes and reasons that were making up about 60% of those deaths. So in the end, we actually didn't make it. We didn't get to 2/3 reduction by 2015. So we didn't make that goal that we had set out for ourselves. But progress was really significant. In fact, after that call to action I talked about, just 2 years later, we estimated that we saved an additional 500,000 lives. Wow. Just by coming together and being focused on that particular objective together, understanding the contributions each stakeholder could make, and doubling down and doing it. And in fact, over the 15-year period, even though we didn't get to 2/3 reduction, it's been estimated that 8.8 million lives were saved just due to that particular goal. Now, we didn't make 2/3 reduction, but the world did make more than a 50% reduction in that time period. And the progress is actually substantial and continues today. So it continues to go on. So failure, but substantial progress. And by the way, this is just one example of significant global progress that the world's experienced over the last couple of years. Just as an aside, we're very close, actually, to ending extreme poverty in the world, the worst deprivation that there is in the world, which frankly would be quite a human achievement. Something that's very underreported, almost unknown, but we're actually at less than 10% of extreme poverty in the world right now, and much of the progress is made over the last few decades. Yes, that is worth applause.
Yay for us!
Exactly.
How do you measure those?
You measure it, it's under $1.90 a day. People who are actually consuming what they're doing every day under $1.90 a day. So what is that global picture that I just talked about? What does that have to do with Las Vegas and Clark County? I'm talking about something that's pretty far away. Frankly, under 5 mortality in the United States, that's a an issue that we've dealt with pretty well. We still have some gaps. There's still some progress that we can make as a country and as a community, but frankly, we're doing quite well. But what I think about that is really compelling about that example is that as a community, we were able to make substantial social progress against really great odds. And how did we do it? So we did it by setting a goal and going after that goal. So it's outcome-based, time-bound goal. Very concrete. It was ambitious, but not crazy. It's something that other countries had gotten to. You didn't have to, getting to that goal didn't mean sort of getting to a place that's unrecognizable on the planet. It's grounded in data. It's measurable. It's comparable. You can compare that data from country to country and community to community. And we were collecting the data to be able to understand it. And we had agreement on how it was measured. Everybody was measuring it in a similar way. There was a deadline, 15 years. That's what we're going towards, time-bound. And it had a political commitment, a strong political will from the very top that was able to, create momentum amongst others. And in fact, these are the very characteristics that made President Kennedy's moonshot so powerful. I mean, there it is right there. So you've got, a time-bound goal before the decade is out. Pretty clear and measurable. We're getting someone to the moon and safely returning that person to Earth. And you've got political will. You've got the president speaking that and saying, we're going to commit to this as a society and as a country. So, and think of it yourself. You set goals for yourself? Isn't that the way in which you think of actually attaining something that you really want? And helping yourself sort of progress along the line to get there? So just to tell a story, I used to play tennis at a pretty high level. And I learned from sports psychology to imagine myself winning. And one of the things you have to do, like if you want to win Wimbledon, you have to actually close your eyes, visualize, see yourself on the court, playing in a tough match at Wimbledon, and then winning. Because you can't win Wimbledon unless you've thought that you can win Wimbledon, unless you've actually imagined it. And that's sort of what goal setting helps us to do. So how many of you know goals that your communities have set for themselves? And actually really specific and time-bound ones. Think about that. It's not the way we normally think about what social progress looks like at the local level. But this is actually the discipline that we use when we make investments overseas. We use data, and we use time-bound objectives to get there, and we use that measurement in between as a way of mobilizing action. And frankly, it's a way for us as a government, when we make foreign aid available, to know that we're trying to get the maximum return on investment. And it's also a way of realizing that social progress isn't automatic, even if you have things like economic growth. So you're even intentionally targeting a particular dimension of social progress or human development while we're making those investments. And you marry those two things together and you say, that's how we're going to make sure we do the best we can and we get the greatest return when we make those investments. And it makes sense that we should aim to maximize that return on investment with our taxpayer dollars at home here, and how we do that. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about a set of goals that actually can help us do that as communities. They're called the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs for short. These are a set of goals agreed to at the national level by national leaders under the auspices of the United Nations, but they really aren't the United Nations goals. In fact, these were developed by a host of people, including just citizens of the world. There was an online survey that even 8 million people responded to and helped set the priorities for. But there were experts from think tanks and universities, like we're here today. There were people from different countries, diplomats. There were people who were being affected by these goals. And they are a very wide-ranging agenda. They pretty much describe everything that's important for development. Everything, if you look at the beginning goals around poverty and hunger and health and well-being, education, gender equality. So there's a whole set that are on the social and human development side. Then you've got decent work and economic growth, infrastructure, reduced inequality, so a whole set that are around economics and economic growth. And then the latter set is all around sustainability, sustainable consumption and production, environmental sustainability. Underneath each of these goals is a set of targets and ways to measure how close we're getting to those targets. Now, they're not perfect. They do represent a political compromise in some respects. But most of them have some quantitative targets behind them and ways to measure what progress looks like. And in fact, they're relevant for anywhere you live. These are not goals that are just for, societies that are struggling or poor countries. And when you think about it, this is what they really do is lay out an agenda that even makes sense to the United States right now. So you want to reinvigorate economic growth, which is what a lot of our political focus has been recently. But it's important to connect economic growth to social well-being. And in fact, a lot of what's been happening in the United States is certain geographic communities and certain demographics actually being left behind even as that economic growth happens. And so what the Sustainable Development Goals try to do is actually connect those two back together. And also disconnect that economic growth from what you would think of as environmental bads. And so we want to grow in a way that is actually sustainable for the environment and the resources that we're using to be able to grow, rather than doing things that are continuing to stress the environment as we go forward. And this is very relevant. And in fact, I have picked some targets. Just cherry pick them from the agenda. And the first number is the actual goal, is the number, and then the second number is the number of the target underneath that goal. But just look at target 1.2 and target 10.1. So reduce poverty by 50%, and then sustain the income growth of the bottom 40% at a rate higher than the national average. And if the United States were to do that, just think of what sort of the social progress would be. That would be sort of what we're struggling with in many of the political conversations that we're having right now. And in fact, if you have poverty by 2030 in the US, it's basically taking 20 million people out of poverty as it relates to the national poverty line in the US. And in fact, target 10.1, around that bottom 40%, even with our economic growth happening the way it is and low unemployment right now in the US, actually that's going backwards. So the bottom 40% is not growing faster than the national average, it's growing actually 0.3% slower than the national average right now. And if you did something like have the number of traffic deaths from accidents, that would save 16,000 lives. These are actual real impacts if you think about this and you really attempt to do it. Now the interesting thing about the SDGs is how widely they've been embraced. So this was not something that I think was anticipated when they were created, but they've really become sort of a common language for leaders that are corporate leaders, celebrities, but also leaders from anywhere that are thinking about sort of on long-term sustainability and long-term social progress. Caesars Entertainment is developing a social sustainability roadmap at the corporate level that shows how their priorities align to the Sustainable Development Goals. Citibank has actually created a whole pamphlet. You can go online and see specific things that they're doing through their business as well as their philanthropy that they think are contributing to making progress on the SDGs. And Impact Nevada, which is a sustainability nonprofit here, actually their 2018 sustainability report on Southern Nevada